Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Susan McGuire, and I'm Manager of Professional Development here at ACCE, and I'm so happy to welcome you all to this webinar on Leadership Styles for Chamber Success by Ali Crain, who is Executive Director of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce Executives. During this webinar, Ali will show you how an awareness of your own leadership style can impact your team's performance and play a significant role in determining your personal and professional success. So before I turn the program over to Ali, we have just a few housekeeping notes. First, please remember to place your phone on mute to avoid background noise. Second, we will have a few minutes for questions at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions, please ask them using the question function of the webinar. The question box is on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Just type in your question, and then I'll read the question to Ali at the end of the webinar. If we run out of time and don't get to your question, or if you have an individualized question that you think would be better answered individually offline, those are no problems. We'll get in touch with you directly after the webinar to answer your question. Ali will also have her contact information on a slide at the end of the webinar, so you should feel free to contact her directly. And finally, this webinar is being recorded and should be up on the ACC website on the ACC University webpage within the next few days. We'll also have Ali's presentation materials available for download as well. So please look for those on our website within the next few days. So with that, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. Ali Crain is Executive Director of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce Executives, a professional society for Kentucky Chamber directors and staff. Her expertise lies in convening and connecting, consulting, and providing solutions. Ali has a love of trend watching as well as global culture and has been involved in more than 25 culturally based international trips, taking her to 30 countries. A lifelong love of travel, an interest in history, and a desire to know and understand more about other cultures has fueled her pursuit in international relations and cultural awareness. Ali is a regular speaker and a meeting and retreat facilitator at chambers and chamber professional associations in Kentucky and Michigan, Indiana, Florida, and Georgia. She received her Certified Chamber Executive, or CCE, designation in 2013 and was awarded a master's degree in executive leadership and organizational change from Northern Kentucky University in July 2015. She is a 2006 graduate of Institute for Organization Management, is currently serving as a Midwest Board of Regents and on faculty, and was a class advisor at the Midwest location in 2012 and 2013. In 2004, she received the Accredited Chamber Executive designation from KCCE and was recertified in 2011. So thank you so much, Ali, for being here today, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciate the opportunity to present this webinar to everyone. So we're going to be talking about leadership today. What is your leadership style, and how does that fit in with working with multi-generations within your organization? And that means not just your board, but your volunteers and your staff as well. So it's a multifaceted way of looking at those multi-generations, because it's not just one group of people. So anytime I'm talking about any of the characteristics or any of those types of things, just think about it in broad terms. I'm sure some of you on the phone may not have staff, or may just be one person in your office. Some of you may have multiple staff, and then you're going to have various different sizes of boards and volunteers that you're working with as well. So just remember, everything is said in generalities, and you take it back the way that works best for you. One of the best things in understanding and moving forward as a leader is knowing what your strengths are. It's really and truly understanding who you are as an individual and being yourself, being your true self, and being authentic. In the past, I think most people have always focused on weaknesses. It has always been about improving something that we're not good at, and we spend a lot of time on those things. I think my focus from this point on, and things that I've looked at over the past couple of years, has really been about what are my strengths? What are the things that I do really well, and how can I improve on those And then I know what my weaknesses are, so who can I find that I can place around me, whether it's an employee or a volunteer or someone else within the organization that can pick up where I am not strong. So for instance, one of my weaknesses, if you want to call it a weakness, it's definitely not a strength that I have, is working in finances. I just don't care to work with budgets or with numbers, those kinds of things. I can do it if I have to. It's just not something I enjoy doing. So I don't focus on that. I don't put a lot of time and energy into having to be able to do that. I put my time and energy into the things that I'm very strong at. Going through grad school the past couple of years, we had to do a lot of assessments. And one of those assessments came back, and I'm going to talk about it in a couple of slides moving forward, but one of them was on the strength-based leadership. And from that, it came back and said that I'm a maximizer. And what a maximizer actually means is that I bring people together in order to make the best of an organization or a situation or a committee, whatever it is. And I was like, yeah, that actually is who I am. That is why I've been successful in all the jobs and career moving forward that I've been in. It's about the connecting and convening. That's why it makes sense with the position that I'm in currently. So knowing those types of things about yourself, and if you don't know what it is, maybe taking an assessment or asking those that are around you to help you figure that out, and then focusing on strengthening what your strengths are instead of focusing on those weaknesses, that is what's going to be the key to helping you be an effective leader and moving forward to working with your team. Then, as you're looking at who your team is, your board, your volunteers, your staff, do you know what their strengths and potential weaknesses are so that you can fill in the blanks around them? But do you know what the strengths are of your board members? Have you sat and talked with them? Have you done an assessment with them? You can do that with your volunteer committee members as well, and even with your staff. By understanding those types of things about your board or about these people, then you know who to work with in particular areas, who to place on teams together to really move the organization forward, to move a project forward, and those types of things, and sometimes who not to put on a team together as well. We recently did this with our organization, with our board members, and it helped identify someone that could be our incoming treasurer that we never would have identified, and they probably wouldn't have come forward with wanting to do that, but it came out that this person would be a really good treasurer for us. So knowing those types of things and understanding what those strengths are with the people around you will help you be able to have a much more effective organization. I mentioned the strength-based leadership, and this is it's a book that you can order, and you can do it online or through Kindle, or you can buy the hardback book. Either way, you're given a code whenever you have that, so you can go online and take the assessment. And then it comes back and gives you the top 5 strength areas that you have. And then throughout the book, it tells you if you have this strength, then this is how you can work with other people with different strengths and those types of things. And basically what it boils down to is when teams have the common language of a strength, it really changes that conversation among the team. You have a much better engagement among everyone involved in the project, and obviously you're going to have a much more positive dialogue that is happening around as well. The other idea with strong teams is that conflict is not kind of the dirty word. We all think of conflict as being something we want to avoid, but conflict can be good if it is done in a constructive way, in the sense of having conflict to solve an issue and not conflict where we're tearing each other down. And strong teams know how to do that. Strong teams also prioritize what's best for the organization, and it's about the organization and not about the individual. And they're very committed to their personal lives as well as work. And they understand that their personal lives are just as important and sometimes more important as the work that needs to be done. And I think that's important to understand as well, especially in the chamber world where sometimes we overcommit to the work world and undercommit to our personal lives. Emotional intelligence is one of the key words that has been around for a while, but it's very important. And knowing what your emotional intelligence is, and again, there's assessments that are out there that you can take to help you with that. It really is about self-awareness. It's knowing how and when you're going to react or potentially react to something. If you are the type of person that when someone confronts you and you have an immediate reaction to that, if you want to change that behavior, you have to be self-aware of it. Sometimes it's taking a step back. If it's an email, then maybe you wait a day or a half a day or whatever before you respond. Maybe if it is a phone call or something, you don't respond right away and just ask the person if you can think this over and give them a call back. A lot of different ways of going about it, but the idea is the self-awareness of emotional intelligence. It is how we handle ourselves and how we handle others. And people look very closely at that as we're moving forward in our careers as well. Emotional intelligence is also about feedback, and that feedback comes from everyone around us. And sometimes feedback is harsh, but if we take feedback with, and not just with a grain of salt, but we take it with the intent that it is good, and we take it as a gift, then it can be very good for us to learn more about ourselves and learn what we do, what are the opportunities that do need to be changed. When I was talking about weaknesses earlier and not focusing on those weaknesses, the one area that I think we do need to look at focusing on those weaknesses is in the area when that weakness can actually prevent us from moving forward in our careers and potentially in our personal lives as well. So using the feedback that comes from those around us can be very beneficial in determining that. If you know or someone is telling you and you've heard it time and time again that this is preventing you from moving forward, then you probably need to do something about that. So that is just a way of looking at those strengths and weaknesses that are there. The VIA character strengths, and I'm going to quickly go through this, but VIA is the values in action. And this is an online free assessment, so if anyone is interested in that link to the website, just send me a message afterwards, and I'll be glad to give that to you. But it takes 25 characteristics and ranks them in order of your preference. And it's very interesting to look at like the top 5 or top 10 that fit with who you are and kind of those values of character that you value the most, and how that applies to your professional and personal life. And the categories that they have them in fall under wisdom and knowledge, under courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. I'll go back because I wanted to say sorry about that. And so those are just some of the ways that we can look at and find out what those strengths are that we have, and then determining how we're going to move forward with our strengths, or whether or not we want to focus on the weakness that might be preventing us from moving forward. So moving on into talking about generations, and again, as I said before, this is all very general in talking about them. There are certain characteristics that are applied to each of the generations. It does not mean that everyone within those that time frame has all of these exact generations, but it does help you to understand a little bit more about the people that are around you, the people who are potentially on your board, the people who are your volunteers, and those on your staff. So keeping that in mind can help you in how you work with and how you deal with those people. The other things, though, that you need to always take into mind and take into consideration is, what is that person's background? How were they brought up? And where are they from within the country? And those types of things as well. And even, are they from the United States, or are they from another country as well? Because that plays into all kinds of other values and things that we need to take into consideration. So just remember, these are just very general types of characteristics. So the traditionals, which were born between 1922 and 45, their characteristics are they're very, very patriotic. They believe in teamwork. They believe in doing more with less. They're very task-oriented. They follow the rules and they follow directions very well. They have a deep respect for authority, and they do not like change. And I'm sure all of you can identify without having to ask the ages of anyone that you work with currently with those characteristics. Next are our baby boomers, and those are the ones that were born between 1946 and 64. This is the group that is very optimistic. They have the exploration is part of who they are. Achievement, it's all about individual choice. They are very community-oriented, and they are goal-oriented. They seek collaboration, and they avoid conflict. We think about the things that were going on when the baby boomers were growing up, and we had the Vietnam War, we had Woodstock happening during that time, and looking at these characteristics, it's very easy to see and identify some of those individuals who would be in that category as well. We have the Gen X generation, which were those born typically between 65 and 80. The other thing to remember is that sometimes you can be a year off on some of these as well, but it's typically between those years. The Gen Xers are all about autonomy, self-reliance. It's about feedback and recognition. They're productive and flexible, and while they're comfortable with authority, they really are not very impressed with titles at all. It doesn't matter to them if you're the executive director, the president of the company, or if you're the janitor. If you can get the job done, then they're okay talking with you about what the issue is. And they are technically competent. It does not mean that they are technology is, the top thing on their mind, but they can get things done. The other thing to remember about Gen Xers is that they were the latchkey kids. This was the generation that came home and had to fix their own snack. They were in a house by themselves because both parents were working, and they had to start on their homework and maybe had chores that they had to do all on their own before their parents got home and started dinner and had their evening time as well. So now we get into the millennials, and this is the Gen Y, and we hear a lot about the millennials as well currently, 1981 to 1994. This is the group that seeks advice and approval from their parents and the managers. If you recall, and I'm sure we've got some millennials that are on the phone with us as well, but you probably have heard the terminology, the helicopter parents. And this is the group that grew up under the helicopter parents. So it's not unusual for them to seek advice and approval from managers because that's how they grew up. They did that with their parents, so they're obviously going to be going to their managers and doing the same thing. They're very self-expressive. They crave change and challenge. They accept diversity, much more so than any of the other generations that are out there because they've grown up with it. It is normal. It's a normal part of who they are. They prefer teamwork, whereas if you remember back to the Gen Xers, they really want more individualism. The Gen Y group, the millennials, they want to work in teams. And they are multitaskers as well. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen millennials, and some of you may do this as well, who can, watch something on TV and, be on social media on the phone and be writing a paper or, whatever it is, and talking with someone, talking with a friend or even a parent or whatever, and get it all done. So multitasking is something that's very easy for them to do because they've been doing it all their life. They also seek balance of lifestyle and work. And that is something very important to keep in mind, that and the craving change and challenge. We'll talk about how important both of those are as we move forward in the conversation and how some of this affects your organization. But thinking of each of those characteristics for each of the different age groups and understanding that, again, each of them doesn't mean that everyone has all of those characteristics, or you can't pigeonhole someone into that just because you're a whatever means that you're exactly like this. But it does help you to understand a little bit more about certain generations and why people could potentially be acting or doing things a certain way. Gen Z, which is the newest generation that we're talking about, and these are the ones that were born in '95 up until the current time. We're still in the Gen Z generation right now. There's not a lot that is known about them, but this is kind of this is what we think we're going to know about them based on those that are kind of here and what we're seeing with them. They're very global. They're the social group. They want to be around people, even though social media, they're growing up with that as well. But they use social media in a way of being able to get together. They're very visual people. Obviously, they're very technological because, again, they're basically born with a smartphone in their hands. They're the early adopters. They are the brand influencers or the social media drivers. They are the pop culture leaders. They're the ones that are behind all of the new things that you are seeing that are coming out. And basically, this generation is going to be the most connected, educated, and sophisticated generation ever that we have seen. And right now, currently, they have influence that is beyond their years. They don't even understand what that is, and really neither do the retailers or the product makers that are out there, because we've never seen anything like this at this point. So really, what does all of this mean? Knowing, again, going back to knowing and utilizing those strengths. Once you get to know those individuals and you know what those strengths are, then you can capitalize on that. The other thing is never make assumptions. Don't ever think that just because someone is a Gen Y or just because someone is a Gen X, that they are always going to act a certain way. Get to know who they are and create some common ground with them, and then understand and embrace the differences of all the generations. And that, to me, is how we can all work together better and get to know one another and basically just have a much more effective group and organization as we work towards the future of what a chamber is going to be. Talking about the next gen in the workplace, and really this is the Gen Ys and the Gen Zs and what they're looking for and how it is going to affect your workplace. So think about, again, your volunteers and your staff members that you have and what they're looking for and how this is going to affect what you're currently doing, whether that is within your office or that is in programming that you're doing. They live in a very digital mindset. They believe that whatever you're doing, that the tool should match to the job, basically, that you don't need to circumvent anything in order to get anything done, that if it's a job that needs to be done, then there's a way to get it done very quickly and simply to do so in a digital way. They also believe in putting the user first, making everything web and app user friendly. And there's a lot of talk about that now, that anything that you have on a website, you need to make sure that it can be smartphone friendly as well, because most of them, they're not using computers, they're using their smartphones in order to access any type of information. And they believe very strongly in dumping what isn't working. If you try it and it's not working, then why are you continuing to do it? And when it comes to sharing data and information, they don't understand why people are stingy with information, why you're not wanting to share that. And I think all of us probably know people who are kind of the keepers of the information in an organization, whether it's someone on staff or a volunteer, and they're not always willing to give up that information because they feel that knowledge is what gives them power. But the younger generation doesn't understand that, and they feel that information should be shared on a much more global basis. They also believe that there's no such thing as I don't know, because they've never had to deal with that before. They've always been able to receive an answer or been able to go after an answer and finding out what it is and not dealing with an I don't know. They believe in the empowerment of others, again, that whole team-based way of doing things, but it's also skill-based and there's no hierarchy. It's more about putting people in the right places and utilizing the skills, the strengths that everyone has. And it's not just about having to work your way up to the top. And they want to have a voice in what is being done, how you're developing a product or how you're developing a program, especially if it's something that is affecting them. They believe in fast information. How quickly is it that an association can react, and who's willing to let go of control? As we all know, in the chamber world, sometimes things don't happen very quickly, and we have to have multiple meetings in order to actually make a decision on something, and they don't understand why we have to do that. They don't understand why we have to hold on to these systems that don't really work. We have to have a meeting in order to make a decision on something when we really should just be able to make a decision and move forward. So as volunteers, as this generation, as volunteers, what does that mean to your organization? Because engagement, again, is very important to them. They believe in sharing. They do not have an interest in ownership. They believe in sharing everything. And if you think about some of the things that are going on in the world right now, like Airbnb, you can understand a little bit more about that sharing, non-ownership type of attitude that they have. Knowledge, again, is about being shared. It's about having it at your fingertips or at their fingertips. So, how do you present your information? Is it easily available to them whenever they are needing it, or do they have to go through hoops in order to be able to get that information? And when it comes to experiences, they want exceptional experiences. They don't want the same old of the chambers of the past. They do not want our grandfather's chambers, as you kind of heard that terminology being used around. They're wanting something on a much more exceptional level. They can work from anywhere, and they can work for anyone, and they can work at any time. In an impact area, they want to make a difference, and they don't believe that government can. So how do these things affect the types of programs and benefits that you're offering up to your members? When we view membership, when they are looking at it, they view it as ownership, and they want to share. So what are some ways that we can change that? Is there a way that we can change that? What are some unique, different ways that are out there? And maybe there are some things that we aren't even thinking about right now that can change the idea of what membership is. If they can work from anywhere and any time, how does that affect you? If someone can join the chamber because they're working at 3 o'clock in the morning, do you have the capability for them to be able to easily go online and join your organization? One of the things I recently challenged my chambers with is to go through their online application and see how easy it was to be able to make that happen. If it wasn't easy for them to do, and they were going to have to jump through hoops to make it happen, then most likely they were going to be losing potential members, because someone who is trying to do that on a Sunday afternoon or at 3 o'clock in the morning is probably not going to take the time later on to give you a call and figure it all out, because they're ready to do it at that time, and they want to do it then. They don't want to have to follow back up with it later on. What can you do to help them make an impact within your community or even on a global basis? What are the things that your organization can do that they can have that exceptional experience and make an impact? And then one of the last things to think about is, are there cliques within your organization? Is there backbiting? Is there infighting? Because that's one of the things, I didn't mention it earlier, but really it's one of the things that the new generation is not interested in. They don't want to get involved in any of that. They want teamwork, but they don't want to be involved in those quick things. They don't want to see the backbiting, the infighting, those types of things. They want to see people happy and enjoying themselves and interested in what is going on. This is one of my favorite quotes by Mother Teresa. You can do what I cannot do. I can do what you cannot do. And together we can do great things. And I think that's very much one of the ways that chambers can look at working with their community, working with the different generations within their community. And it could be something you put up on your wall if you want to, but I think it's a great quote that we have. And with that, I know we're not quite at a full hour there, but hopefully we'll have some questions. If anybody does, feel free to ask. This is my information. You can get in touch with me either by email or you can give me a call, and I'll be glad to take some questions now.
Okay, well, thank you, Ali. We have a couple questions, and if anyone else has any questions, go ahead and just take a moment and type them into the question box, and I will see them and I'll read them off to Ali. So we have one question in response to the early part of your presentation, and it has to do with what if you have a member of your team who believes that that their team weakness is what makes them a strong member, and as they have no self-awareness and they don't have any interest in learning, I guess, how to work with the rest of the team. How do you handle those? It's a hard one.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it all boils down to conversation, and sometimes you can have conversation after conversation with a member of the team, and if this person is a staff member, then it may be time for that staff member to go. If they are not positively contributing to the organization and they are actually holding back the organization from moving forward, then it may just be time for them to go. And actually, even if that person is a board member and a volunteer, there are ways to move them on as well. So if you can have the conversation with them about how they're holding back everyone else, and maybe it is starting with the assessments and doing full assessments either with your staff or your board member, whoever it is that is a team member, starting with those assessments. And once you have it written down, it's kind of black and white that that's not your strength that you think that it is, and that can be a starting point.
Okay. I have a question that I also had. You talked about a strength-based learning assessment, and you had some other links, Ali, that you
Yes.
discussed. Do you think that if you could provide those links to me, I'd be happy to post them on our website right where I post the recording.
Absolutely. Glad to.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll do that for everyone. So when y'all look for the recording of this, I'll have Ali's presentation materials, and then I'll have some links to some other materials that she mentioned. And as she indicated, you should feel free to contact her directly too if you prefer to chat about any of these things. And then I have, I guess that's it. Will this presentation be available on demand? Yes, it will be recorded. So you should be able to find it on the ACC University website. Let me see if there's anything else here. I think that's it. So as I said, thank you, Ali, for your presentation. Thank you, everyone, for your participation and your questions. Give me about 24 to 48 hours, and I'll have this on the website. And I guess that's it. Thanks so much, and have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Susan.